Question mark? Hello my friends, this is one of those rare, delightful times when I get to talk about companies that are not Nintendo and games that are not necessarily on Nintendo platforms. How are you doing today? I'm gonna try to go through these pretty quickly here. As always, I'm not talking about every individual thing. That would take hours and hours. If there's something, even if it's kind of a notable thing, if I don't really have anything to say about it, I'm not gonna mention it. These are just kind of my own highlights, things that sort of stuck out to me. So first of all, at Xbox, I'll kind of go over my overall thoughts of Xbox at the end here, but the first thing, Outer Worlds. This game looks pretty darn terrific. If you don't know anything about it, it's made by Obsidian, and they were the guys that made Fallout New Vegas. I never played Fallout New Vegas, but I did hear that it was really, really good. Outer Worlds is basically them saying, you know what, we don't really like the direction that Bethesda has taken Fallout in Fallout 4. We're gonna bring it back to where it was. It's basically Fallout. Like, Outer Worlds is Fallout. And you know what? Because of that, literally just because of that, I'm really excited for it. Really, really excited. It feels so much like Fallout. So many of the same themes, even just the way that it plays and the way the characters talk. It's a total copy, and I am totally okay with that. And you know what? They earned it, because they did make a Fallout game. It's not like it's not like when a developer just completely copies the style entirely, just right out of the gate. I'm not even necessarily saying that's a whole discussion. Whatever. Point is, they made one, everyone liked it, so I'm very, very excited to play Outer Worlds. I know there's a lot of stinkiness going around about the whole fact that it was going to come to Steam, and now it's not. It's going to the Epic Store first. Whatever, I'm not going to get into that now, though, but I'm really excited to see more, really excited to play Outer Worlds when it finally hits my PS4. So I don't know a lot about Ninja Theory and their history. I know Microsoft bought them. I know the last game they put out was Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, and it looked like this amazing, like, AAA but indie, gorgeous, beautiful graphics, single player, emotional, story driven kind of game. And so I was like, oh wow, I'm really excited to see what they're gonna do under Microsoft's banner. You know, now that they got extra Microsoft money, they could make something even bigger and better. And so then they show us this. They show us Bleeding Edge, a silly character based or hero, whatever it is, online arena kind of game. Just like, oh, okay. Just seems a little like, I don't know anything about the game. Those kinds of games aren't really my thing, and I'm not saying it'll be bad or anything, but just like, really? That was your first game under Microsoft? Was a multiplayer, just like, it's just, there's so many games doing that right now. So many, that the fact that you'd want to jump in on an already overcrowded market instead of doing something wonderful and artful and like you did with Hellblade, I don't really know. So that was disappointing. Just watching the reveal unfold was like, oh, okay, so that's something I was looking forward to seeing. That's just kind of not a thing I'm looking forward to seeing anymore. Ori and the Will of the Wisps looks positively gorgeous. So gorgeous. Oh my gosh. Just, artistically and graphically and everything, I am amazed. I really do have to play the first one of these days, because this looks so terrific. And just looking at that, this is where 2D platformers are at right now. I look at this and I'm like, I want a Metroid game to look like this. You know what I mean? Like, I can't wait till we reach a point where some of Nintendo's 2D games start looking like this. Because this is like, yeah, this is right. This is where we should be. There's no reason a few years from now we shouldn't be able to get a Metroid game with just backgrounds and creatures and stuff that look this beautiful. Not the exact same art style, obviously, but oh man, the artistic amazingness. So then Phil Spencer comes on and talks about all the exclusives and how they're still buying up these companies, and talking about how many different titles they've got from Microsoft Game Studios in the whole presentation, and it's really impressive, and it's just, it's what I expected. It's what they did last year, it's what I expected more of this year. Just like, we didn't used to have any exclusives, but that is changing right now, and it is going to be changing moving into the next generation. A lot of positioning. And I will say, if they follow through with all this, like, they're going to become a development powerhouse. Like, they're positioning themselves to be like Nintendo and Sony, and that's great. They're finally catching up. That was one of the things that was hurting them. So that's definitely exciting, because like they seem to have a really nice, a fun little creative spark. They really love indies, and they really love going after these fun, more colorful little projects. They just seem to have a really broad range of what they invest into. Probably more so than Nintendo or Sony. Nintendo they're way more skewed on the kiddie side of things. And then Sony, like, they do like their little indie projects too, but at least recently, all their big exclusives are all more realistic and more mature and all that. Microsoft's got a good range though, a good range of themes, a good range of just game size, really ranging all over the place. So that's exciting, and I'm really, really excited to see what happens next. Then technically this would belong in an EA section, but they didn't really have a full show, and I'm done watching them. So then we got a trailer for Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. And this is one of those ones where EA, like, as a marketing tool, had to come out and be like, hey, guess what, everyone? We're not going to cancel this one, and we're not going to close the studio that made it, and we're not going to fill it with microtransactions. Give us a round of applause. Pat us on the back. It's just like, no, definitely not. I mean, it's cool that the game is happening. I know they've canceled all these other single-player Star Wars games. This is kind of them trying to make up for it. I will say, though, doesn't look very good. Doesn't look very good at all. I mean, like, it's coming out fairly soon. Maybe there'll be more. Maybe they'll give us more trailers that make it look a lot bigger or something. But right now, it's really, really basic. It's really just kind of all the general Uncharted style third-person stuff with the climbing and everything, and then some really kind of plain, basic-looking combat. Just doesn't really look like it does anything interesting, like, at all. So I don't know. We'll see, though. I mean, I know Star Wars isn't really my cup of tea in the first place, but just looks pretty uninspired. Maybe kind of rushed. Then we had Blair Witch. I had a very, very funny moment in my commentary for my patrons where I saw the camera and I saw 1996 and I saw the guy standing in the corner. I'm like, is this a Blair Witch game? But I'm like kind of halfway joking. Apparently that's what it is. It looks pretty cool. I don't know how much of this is actual gameplay. The light is just moving around so realistically that I don't know. If it is gameplay, that means they really made a really cool, realistic kind of randomization to the light that makes it look very real. But I don't know. I've been looking for more horror. It just looks like a lot of weird visual stuff, and I don't know what kind of game it'll be, if it'll be any good, but I'm very interested to see more on that. Cyberpunk 2077, I still don't know enough about what the game is going to be like. We got a little tiny bit of gameplay snippets at the end, kind of rough. But I do know, and I didn't play Witcher 3, but I do know CD Projekt Red is a pretty darn good developer. Got a lot of faith in this one. The cinematic was cool. I don't know if it was in engine. If it was, then this is, I mean, it's definitely going to be a next-gen game. I'd be extra impressed if it was in engine. Probably not, just because it didn't say that. The Keanu Reeves reveal was pretty funny. It's just funny. What a funny guy to just randomly pop up in the game and then come out on the stage. but whatever. The cinematics were really beautiful. Really just, my gosh, like, this is where we're at with CG. And it's pretty darn amazing. It sounded like the game was so early in development last year that I'm really surprised that the release date is so soon. It's just like, okay, next year we're gonna do it. It's not even that many months away. So that's cool. Then there was Battletoads. Does not look good. I don't care about Battletoads at all. I didn't play the original. I don't have any love for it, no nostalgia. I'll just say that as a game though, this looks, I don't like the style, the cartoony style, and then like the sections where they're like the on rails ones where they're just going forward and jumping over platforms and around walls, looks bad. That it just looks really, really cheap. Just cheap is really what it is. Very, very, very low budget. I don't know anything about the game. Maybe it'll look better later, but my first impression was, oh, okay, that's a game, I guess. So then they came on and talked about Game Pass, and Game Pass is pretty amazing. It's looking better and better all the time. It's still only $10, and now they got the deal where they wrap in Xbox Live with it and include all the PC games. The PC games are essentially free if you're already paying for Xbox Live. I don't know how they're making money off of this at all. I really don't, especially if they're including so many new games on Game Pass. You could just pay for a month and then play it and then stop and be done instead of paying $60. It's such a good deal, though. I would not be surprised if this was just them at the end of this generation, just being like, you know what, let's kind of just break even. We're not going to make a bunch of money on any of these games, but we are getting people invested in the platform and liking us as a platform. Do you know what I'm saying? Maybe they're not even breaking even. Maybe they're even losing money. Who knows? But just to get things going and build up momentum so that going into next gen, they're really just ready for success. because it's just, I don't know, Game Pass, they offer so many games. So especially if you're someone who's not had an Xbox One, or maybe you've never had an Xbox system, it's like, oh gosh, $10 a month. I can just play like this giant library of games. So that was cool. Age of Empires 2, that made me laugh. That made me laugh a lot, because like, the guys who make those games, they're like, all right, everyone loved Age of Empires 2. Age of Empires 3, no one cared. No one thought it was very good. It's one of those things where they're like, okay, people just like this one game that we made a super long time ago. Like, when did that even come out? That might have even been a late 90s game. I'm not really sure. It's pretty old. Everyone still loves it. Okay, that's what we're gonna do. So, like, several years back, it was Age of Empires HD, and now they're bringing out this one with, like, totally updated graphics, 4K resolution, looks really, really nice, but it's still the same basic game. They didn't, like, totally redo it or anything. Really nice mix of you know, remastering while still looking like the original. I just think that's funny. It's a really good game. You should really try it out. So Microsoft's acquisition of Double Fine, that was actually a really, really big thing. That was a really big announcement. Double Fine has been something of an indie game powerhouse over the last several years. I mean, they really got this whole, they kind of kickstarted this whole Kickstarter thing with their Double Fine adventure. They've made a lot of really high quality games. They've put them on so many different platforms. It's just really interesting. I'm kind of disappointed though, just because, you know, they've always been, like, we only just started to see Double Fine games. We're getting that rad one on the Switch. But after this, I don't know how much that's going to happen anymore. I mean, obviously Microsoft and Nintendo might do more stuff together. But I don't really know. I was hoping for more Double Fine games on the Switch, and maybe this is why, because they're a Microsoft studio now. So it's exciting for them in a way. They'll have more money, but at the same time, they've already been making such good games. I don't know how much this is going to help the people who like their games, if it's just going to make it harder to play them. I don't really know. We'll have to wait and see, but it was big news, though. 12 minutes looks interesting. I don't know enough about the gameplay or how it will actually play, but as a concept, based on the teaser, I will say that I am interested in finding out more. That is all I'll say about that. Wait to the Woods looks good. That's the kind of weird, kind of artsy, what even kind of game is it game that I really like. That's another one I'm interested in. I would definitely like to play that. Then they had a whole bunch of stuff on Gears of War. I'm not a Gears of War fan or anything. The one part about it that kind of stood out to me was he was talking about some sort of, like, not necessarily a map editor, but something where you could set up your own little campaigns, and you're the, you know, some guys are the aliens and someone is the other one, and you create challenges for them. I think that's cool. I'll probably even do a whole video sometime about how just, like, player creation needs to be more of a thing, and it's kind of becoming a thing now. I've actually seen it a couple different places throughout E3. Just little things here and there where players are able to create their own challenges, their own whatevers, and we need more. We need more of that. Elden Ring, the teaser was just a teaser with a bunch of, you know, disconnected, nonsensical, general kind of fantasy stuff going on. I mean, there's some weird stuff in there, but there's no way to make heads or tails of it. I don't know if it's just it's from Software. I don't know if it's just gonna be another Dark Souls game or whatever. I know other games are about the same. Who knows what it's gonna be, but it's interesting that it's like they're making it with George R.R. Martin, which is giving him another reason to not write his books. Just another thing to distract him from finishing Song of Ice and Fire. So that's nice. No, I do think it's interesting though. It seems like a project that they both really wanted to work on, because it's just kind of weird. It's just kind of weird and unexpected. So I'm at least interested to see how that turns out. Then they talked about xCloud, which is their, you know, they're starting to get into streaming. Like this year, everyone is starting about the streaming. The idea is you'll be able to stream, especially like with the Game Pass, if you have that, stream it from a server somewhere, or maybe even stream it from your own Xbox. It's an interesting idea. As I've talked about before, I still don't know about this whole streaming thing. I just don't feel like I have internet that's good enough, and I don't know when I ever will. But it is cool. The thing that I would say is notable about this, them talking about it in this conference, is that that's exactly the kind of thing that normally a company would go on about way too long, and it would like push out everything else, but they did a really good job of talking about the potential of it without pretending like everything else didn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't do that at the expense of talking about something else. And for instance, then they went on to talk about Scarlet, their next, you know, that's the code name for their next-gen system that'll be coming out next holiday. And I just thought that was great. They were like, this is going to be a nice service, but it's not like, they weren't pitching it like other companies do, where it's like, this is the only service you're ever going to need for the rest of your life. Everything else is dumb. Half the show is about this. It just kind of was presented as a nice alternative. But at the same time, nothing is more important than just playing games, and you know, they're still making a great next-gen system, and it won't matter if you don't want the streaming thing, if you're not into that. Scarlet's exciting, though. So is, like, PS5. It seems like every generation before this, they've gone so hard on, like, the graphics, that there were still some big-name, great graphics games that were, like, not even hitting 1080p, because they were going for that fidelity so hard. So now it's nice to see that they're going for the high resolution and the high frame rate. So we're probably not even going to get games that look that much better, but they're going to run that much better, and I'm totally okay with that, because that is fine. Graphics are already really, really good. Anyway, it's kind of an aside. Then they ended with Halo Infinite. I'm not a big Halo fan, but it was cool that there was a cinematic trailer. Would have been nice to get some gameplay. The most notable thing about that is that it is launching on the Scarlet, and that is a big deal. It is really rare when a company launches with a big flagship title for the platform. You know what I mean? Even Nintendo. Like, the best we get with Nintendo is, like, the Wii U launching with New Super Mario Bros. U. Do you know what I mean? The only times they're able to launch with a big, like a Zelda, is when they just had it on the previous console and they delayed it so much that they kind of got lucky, you know? That's what happened with Twilight Princess. They delayed it to be on the Wii. And then Breath of the Wild, they delayed it to be on the Switch. And that's nice. It accomplishes the same thing, but it still takes that delay and takes that kind of bad luck to happen. But as far as just, like, from the start, just being like, we made this game and it's launching on this, like, that so rarely happens. So it'd be really nice to be an Xbox fan and know that day one, they're going to be playing the next Halo. That's very cool. Overall, Xbox's show was solid. Like, they didn't have a bunch of big, huge, giant announcements, but that's exactly to be expected right now, because this is the kind of deep breath before next generation. You know, next generation starts next year for these other companies. Like, that's, you know, PlayStation 5, whatever it's going to be called. It's going to be PlayStation 5. And the next Xbox, they're going to be November next year, so nobody has a lot to show. I mean, that was the reason Sony just didn't even have a conference this year, because they just didn't really have anything to show. So considering that, I'd say Microsoft had a good showing. They kept the flow moving. They showed enough new games that it was entertaining the whole way through, just as a show. It was great seeing them talk so much about their next-gen consoles instead of waiting for next year, which is what everybody did last gen. They kind of waited till March of the same year to reveal. Maybe not March, somewhere around there. Yeah, it was a good show. It was really nice to see how hard they're trying. Just like last year, just like, we're buying more studios, we're doing more games. That is building up hype for next gen. That's building it up really hard. They are doubling down on focusing on games and repairing the damage they did to their reputation last gen. Like, in just a few years, they've gone from like, oh man, Microsoft totally stinks. They don't care about us gamers at all. They're just mindless corporate blah. To like, no, I'm on their side now. I'm like, I might get an Xbox, the next one, the Scarlet or whatever, because they're just, I don't know, they're doing it, man. They're really doing it. They're connecting. So then we have Bethesda's show. Theirs was not as good, but I'll kind of sum that up in a bit. They come on with the employees thing. They like to do that. They like to remind us that they're the good guys and their employees are happy working there. And you know what, like, even with all their blunders, they do seem to be still pretty far above a lot of these really big companies in just their morals. They're not doing everything right, but like, I don't doubt it when I see these things of these people who enjoy working there, whereas that kind of thing with a bigger publisher like EA or Activision or whatever, it's more like, this feels like a very strategic move to get people to sympathize with you. That's a great thing about these. It's not even just me talking about the other companies, it's also me way more cynical because I have a lot more to be cynical about. But Todd Howard comes on, and in my eyes, he has lost all goodwill that I might have had toward him. He tries to play himself as this, yeah, I'm a cool guy, like, you all know me, I'm a billionaire and I own this company, but like, we could still be pals, I'm still a game developer, I'm a gamer like you guys. And that kind of like worked a little last year, because they had such a good show. But now it's like the veil has kind of dropped, and he comes on, and I'm just like not feeling anything he's saying. He comes on and he makes this little joke like, man, we sure learned our lesson about Fallout 76. We had a lot of really well-deserved feedback. Like a little like self-deprecating joke about like, man, we really learned our lesson. But like, that doesn't fly. That doesn't fly at all, because he just had this interview. I mentioned this already. He just had an interview saying they knew Fallout 76 wasn't good. They knew it. They knew that it would get bad reviews. They willingly shipped out a product that was not finished. He can't come on and do this little like, boy, we really learned our lesson, right? No, you didn't. That was a calculated move. You knew how people were going to react to it. So that was just kind of gross. And after that, like, everything he says is just kind of gross. I can't really trust it. And then, of course, like, the first thing they launch into is Elder Scrolls Blades stuff. It's like, great. Really good way to start the show. Really good way to start the show is with your mobile game that everyone is talking about. Is just, like, really, really gross. And microtransactions and all that stuff. And, like, that's the Switch port we get. Bethesda has this big catalog of awesome games that would go really well on the Switch, and we get one single port, and it's for the free-to-play, aka free-to-wait Elder Scrolls Blades mobile game. Hooray. Sorry if I'm not super excited about that. And then, of course, they're covering the controversial stuff first, so the next thing they go into is Fallout 76, and they're doing a whole ton of content for it. I'm happy to see that it's all free. It would have felt pretty nasty if they had started charging people for this stuff, because I'm giving it to them. They're not abandoning it like EA abandoned Anthem after 2 seconds. They're actually bringing content to Fallout 76, and between all this stuff that they advertised in their show, yeah, it looks like it's going to be a real game. It looks like they're finally going to make it a real game that's maybe worth some money. So, I mean, I'll give it to them there. They should have had that there in the beginning. They should have just delayed it by a year. But they're doing it, so it's nice. I don't know if that many people will actually return to it and give it a chance, but at the very least, it might be a real game. So then we had Ghostwire Tokyo. I don't know anything about these people very much, or this game. I do like how everybody really loved the girl that was talking. Just all the happy tweets and stuff about her. Everyone thought she was adorable. Her energy, just how spunky and fun she was. The trailer looks cool. Like I said, I don't know anything about the game, but any kind of weird, horror-y weirdness cinematic trailer like that, I'm like, oh, I'll look into it. I'm curious to see what all this weirdness happening is. Then they talked about Elder Scrolls Online for probably way too long. And the one thing I'll say about all the Elder Scrolls stuff is, can we just get a real movie that looks like these cutscenes? Like, can they just, like, take the money that they spent on the cutscene and then multiply it by, like, 40 or 50 or whatever and give us a full, like, just nobody's making, like, anytime with CG movies, it's all kids movies. Or it's like, oh, we're finally getting a CG fantasy movie. It's Beowulf. Or it's the Warcraft movie that, like, I've actually heard people say it was okay, but to me it looked pretty bad. I don't care, just can we get some more like this? I know it's probably pretty pricey, but I want to see people casting spells and fighting dragons and stuff in a whole movie. A lot. Then there was Commander Keen, which they really played like it was supposed to be a big deal. I think this is a returning IP. He must have had, like, some super old games. Bethesda's good at that. They own all these IPs, and they don't often buy new ones. They kind of just bring old ones back, which is kind of fun. But then it's like, oh, it's a mobile game. And it really doesn't look that good. I really just don't, I don't know, I just don't like that kind of cartoony style, and they went on about it for, like, way too long. And it's kind of like at this point, then they start going on Elder Scrolls Legends, which is the card game. Between that and Commander Keen and Elder Scrolls Blades, is just like too much mobile content. They have to know that we don't care that. I mean, I guess they think if we like their other IPs, we must like the mobile versions too. And so it's all mobile stuff. And then with Fallout 76 and Elder Scrolls Online, it's mobile/online stuff. Bethesda's all about single-player experiences, and at this point, we've had, like, none for, like, the whole entire show. Then they go on to Wolfenstein Youngblood, which is, again, it's taking a single-player game, and I'm pretty sure it's multiplayer, right? Or at the very least co-op. I'm not exactly sure. I really enjoyed Wolfenstein 2. I still need to go back and play the first one. I mostly just, like, I wonder about the timeline, because, like, I'm waiting for the third Wolfenstein game in this trilogy, or whatever it is, to see what happens. But it's like, this takes place 20 years later. So it's like, oh, so we kind of know what happens. We know that his wife survives, at least long enough to make some kids. Like how much of the story are they going to spoil? It's like, oh, I guess the war is still going, so I guess in the next game we don't win the war. I don't really know. And then, like, the trailer, there's really not much to know. I don't know if I'll like it. It's just shooty action. And that's, you know, what I liked about the game was exploration and characters and story and everything. I'm sure that'll all probably be there, but it just means I don't have a lot to say about the trailer. It's just kind of like, oh, yeah, that's another Wolfenstein game. Sure. Then they talked about their streaming thing, which is Orion, which sounds like it's just supplementing other streaming services in order to make them better. Or perhaps they're just selling this technology. I don't know if it's like, oh, you have to get the Orion app and then through that get Stadia or xCloud, or if they're just kind of selling this technology to those people. I'm not really exactly sure, but I hope it lives up to what they're saying, which is just it makes streaming better. I don't know, maybe is it possible from a software end to just make streaming work on my devices, even if my internet's bad? I really have no idea, but we'll see. Then there was Doom Eternal, which was their big thing. Like, they didn't have any other big announcements or anything, but at the very least, going in, we knew we were going to get more info on Doom Eternal, and there isn't even that much to talk about. They talked about it for a long time, showed a lot of footage, but it's just like, yeah, it looks great. It looks really great. I'm pretty excited. All these different new guns. Oh my gosh, the ability to, like, mid-air dash and, like, grab onto stuff and launch yourself up onto ledges. You're even more fluid and mobile than before, and so that's pretty darn exciting, because that mobility was one of the things I loved so much about the first one. So we'll see. Yeah, I got nothing. It just looks really cool. Everything they show just looks cool. I'm looking forward to it. Overall, Bethesda's show was really not good. Like, I had a fun time watching it, especially because I watched it with a friend. But then, like, after, I'm, like, chewing on it, and it's just like, it wasn't very good, though. They didn't really have anything to announce. It was just all the samey kind of stuff, way too much mobile, and like, dude, I mean, you've probably heard everyone talk about this. They have to have paid the audience to cheer, or like all the Bethesda company people taking up the first few rows or something. That, like, it was so fake. The crowd was losing their minds at everything. Like, they're talking about mobile games. They're talking about, like, Elder Scrolls Blades and Commander Keen, and everybody is just losing it. They're reacting as strongly as people were reacting to, like, the Final Fantasy VII Remake announcement. You know what I mean? Like, this really, really big stuff. They're just going completely bonkers about the simplest stuff. So, like, by the end, it seemed really, really just not very genuine at all. And it kind of brought down what was already a pretty mediocre show. Like, they really need to step it up next year. Like, they prove, you know, I mean, companies prove this all the time, but it's more proof that it's not just about what you have to announce and what you don't. It's about the show itself and how much you respect the people watching the show. So moving on, Ubisoft. They didn't have a good show either. And this could, again, just be the sort of, like, because we're halfway, but or we're partway between generations, and so maybe they just didn't have a lot of big stuff to announce or something. I'm not really sure, but let's start from the top. Watch Dogs Legion. I thought the idea was pretty cool. I like that, you know, they're not just doing the same thing again and again and again. They at least have this, like, base idea to change Watch Dogs where every time you die, you are a new person. I guess it's randomly generating people. So that's fun. It adds a kind of, especially if you get to know a person and you get to like them, it's kind of you're not going to be set back too much probably if you have to change people. I don't know exactly how it'll work, but there's an impermanence to them that is kind of scary. Like, that will motivate you to not die. It feels impossible to make a game like this with this mechanic without eventually just like, oh, I've heard all these different dialogue things a million different times, the same voice actors. I don't really know, but they're big. They got a lot of money, so maybe they'll do okay there. So I just thought it was kind of a cool idea. Then Rob McElhenney came on and talked about how he's making a show. I guess the show is called Mythic Quest Raven's Banquet. I don't know, but it's like a show sort of spoofing game developers where they're this big. They've got the biggest MMO in the entire world. And I think the idea, it's just a comedy show. I think the idea is really cool. I like to see, there's not been a lot of really genuine game stuff properly spoofed in mainstream media because the people making that media don't understand games, you know, like Big Bang Theory. None of those guys play games. They don't know what they're talking about. So I think the idea is fun. My only concern, though, is that they are working really closely with Ubisoft in order to, I guess, kind of get a feel. That's their research into the game industry. My concern, though, is that, like, with any kind of show like this, the funniest part is where they fail. My idea of a game dev show would be exploring nasty microtransactions and exploiting the player and like obsessive DLC culture and delays and the just like all the bad side. You kind of like take it and you spoof it by making it kind of funny, you know, like how they not treating their employees well and all that stuff, and just even just individual problems of making games. And I feel like the fact that they're working so closely with Ubisoft means they're not really going to go into that. They're not going to expose the faults of the game industry, which is what I think would be funniest. Like, we only saw a little teaser, and what we saw in the teaser was I guess he's the main character. He's the guy who runs the company, played by Rob McElhenney, and he thinks that games are such a big deal that he should be on the same level as, like, famous directors and famous artists. And, like, that's funny, but that's also the kind of character that's the only joke we get, is where he's super full of himself. And he should be considered this big artist. And that's okay. It's not that funny, though. So, I don't know. I need to wait and see. I do kind of worry it's going to be kind of a toned down thing where it's mostly just about the humor and not necessarily the humor based on really what's going on in the AAA game industry. But we'll see. We'll just have to wait and see. I'm trying to be optimistic because it's a cool idea. Then we had Just Dance. It was not at the beginning, even though I was like joking about how one of my predictions was that it would be about at the beginning in my Patreon commentary track. And it wasn't. The one time I actually predicted something because I thought it was so obvious, it wasn't at the beginning. So there you go. The one time I predicted, I'm wrong. It is on the Wii though, which is pretty funny. Not on the Wii U, just the Wii. I wonder how long they'll keep that up. Then they talked about Uplay Plus, I think is the name of it, where it's another subscription service. It's $10 a month, and it's got a bunch of Ubisoft games on it. And it's one of those things where it's like, I'm not doubting that it's a good deal, but it's just whenever like everybody jumps on board and there's so many subscription services, it's just like, I just start to kind of shut my brain off to it. That's what TV has happened. There's just so many now that like, I'm not gonna pay for all these different services at the same time. So, I don't know. I guess the timing just wasn't great, especially after seeing so much about Game Pass. It was just kind of like, oh, Ubisoft's doing it too. Huh, interesting. I don't know. Probably all right. Then they went into Roller Champions. I don't really have anything much to say about this. It does seem they're really trying hard to get into the kind of fun esports crowd. Like, the people look like they're straight out of Fortnite with the cartoony faces and everything, and it's big and silly, a little bit like Rocket League. Like, it seems like that's what they're going with here. They're hoping this is going to be a big thing, a big success, and break into the esports thing. The idea looks kind of interesting. Just, it kind of makes sense. I'm almost surprised we haven't seen a game like it before. You're just roller skating around a thing and scoring hoops and all the neon and everything. Just seems like a fairly good idea. We'll see how it goes. They closed out with Gods and Monsters. They really hyped it up, and they're like, oh, it's from the creators of Assassin's Creed, and it's about Greek mythology and gods and monsters and all that stuff, and it's showing this beautiful background, and here's a taste. And then it was just this, it was nothing. It was basically nothing. It was basically like an animated piece of concept art. It just shows a guy or a kid or whatever with a sword, and then there's a thing, and it's like, rah, and that's it. That was not enough to end a conference on. It was like this conference ended with a whimper. You can end with a teaser like that if it's for like a well-established thing that people are looking forward to. But if you're gonna close your conference with it, you've got to show people why it is something to be excited about. And this just didn't. It was just kind of like, this was a middle conference thing. Like, oh, we're working on a new thing, Gods and Monsters. Oh, it's a kid with a sword, rah! And then, oh, I guess I'll have to find out more later. But, like, I don't know. It just seemed like a really bad way to end. A really bad way to show off the concept of this game. I don't know. It might end up being a great game. Like, I don't doubt that at all. And it's going to be on the Switch, so that's pretty cool. Maybe it's going to be amazing, but in this case, in this context, it just did not work. it seemed like a total flub. Like, it just brought all the momentum completely to a close. And then, overall, was weird. We didn't get Beyond Good and Evil 2, despite the fact that it's been at the last 2 E3s, so it felt like now it was really ready for a whole full gameplay world reveal, and it just wasn't there at all. And then Skull and Bones, same exact thing. 2 years ago, it got its initial reveal. Last year, it got more with more gameplay, and then this year, it's like, all right, it's gonna like actually launch, right? And here's the full thing. Not even there. Maybe they just didn't want us to get tired of it because it had been at 2 E3s, but just kind of weird. Kind of weird, not like, okay, these games are finally ready. Like, how early are you showing us these games that you've got to just so, you know, it's a pet peeve, just so many years after the reveal before it comes out, to the point where they're like, everyone's tired of seeing it, just don't even have it be at E3. It's like, when is it even coming out? Anyway, the main problem with their show, it was all the same stuff. Like, amongst everything that I just mentioned, it was new Ghost Recon, and it was Rainbow Six Quarantine, and DLC for Rainbow Six Siege, and it was For Honor DLC, and it was Division 2 DLC. Just all of the Tom Clancy's, a million billions Tom Clancy's, and here's one, and here's a sequel, and here's the DLC to the sequel, here's the DLC to the first one. It's very tiresome. It's very samey. And every year, I guess I just kind of get a little more tired of it, and they just didn't really have anything else to kind of prop it up. Ubisoft really loves just relying on that kind of small handful of stuff. Yeah, and then even Watch Dogs, like, that's been coming out pretty regularly since the first one. So yeah, Watch Dogs, Ghost Recon, Rainbow Six, blah, 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 blah. I mean, there was no Assassin's Creed. That would have made it a little bit worse. Was there? Oh no, I guess before the show, they had a little thing talking about how they're making a story editor. You can actually make your own quests and stuff. That's cool. I'll give you that. I'll give you that completely. You can, like, they make the characters have their own dialogue and everything. And that's another one of those creation things. I need to remember that. That's for my discussion later. Another player creation tool. That's great. We need to see more of that. Overall, though, just really not a great show. Just same. Nothing really exciting. Just kind of blah. I mean, like, it wasn't as, like, insulting as the Bethesda one with all the fake cheering and the heavy emphasis on mobile stuff, but it was still just kind of gross. They need to do better next year. So then there was Square. It's the only one I didn't do a full commentary for. I really only 2 things. It was really the Final Fantasy VII Remake, which graphically it looks really cool. I will say, I was complaining before about how they're making it a real-time thing instead of turn-based. I didn't really like that. I feel like that changes the game too much. Makes it more of a reimagining than a remake. I'd rather have the graphics all remade, and even like the camera and how it moves, and you can add more content. Like, a lot of people are like, you don't even like remakes. You just want a remaster, but that's not exactly true, because a remaster, everything is still literally exactly the same. Just done over again. You know, like, I'm fine with, like, full character movement and bigger environments and all that stuff. I just didn't really like how it's real time. But we saw here that it's kind of a mix. You can actually kind of slow down time and do, like, some more strategic stuff. So that's good. I will say that is a lot better. Overall, though, I'm still not 100% sold on it. Visually, it looks really good, even if I don't really like that now they're all, like, realistic human characters, but they still have all the same costumes and hair, and it really just looks dumb. If you ask me, it looks really dumb on realistic characters. I like the cartoony thing a little bit more in this case. It just sort of looks so different that it's a totally different game. It doesn't give me a lot of the nostalgia for 7, which is what I feel like a remake should do. I guess I just would have liked something a little more in between. This is nice. I'm glad that everyone else seems to like it so much, because it really does look pretty big and ambitious and cool. The thing I don't like about it the most, though, is that, like, they're being really not clear about how much game there is. It's like, oh, it only goes up to Midgar, but we think it's longer before that. But, like, all the promotional stuff, it's just like, it's Final Fantasy VII, and it's coming at this time. And he's kind of mentioning how, oh, we think it's more than one game's worth. It's just, it almost seems like they're purposefully confusing us. I don't know how many different games it's going to be, but I'm not interested. I am not interested at all. I mean, like, I'm probably not going to get it anyway, but I'm extra not interested until they give us, like, a clear map. How long is this going to be? How many games is it going to be? How long is each one gonna be, because this almost seems like they're trying to trick us. I mean, like, maybe they don't know themselves, but if that's true, then I'm like not even getting close to this. I will not even touch it until they know exactly what they're doing. And even then it's like, oh, we did 3 episodes, but now we don't know how many more episodes it's gonna be, and no one bought the 3rd one, so now we're just gonna scrap the 4th one. Like, I don't know. I need to have faith in this stuff. I need to know what's going on. And it's still weird to me that they don't think they can just put it in one game, but I don't know. Whatever, maybe it's gonna be that great. I just really don't like episodic games at all. Feels weird. Don't like it. Then there was Avengers. It didn't show a ton. I'm not a big Marvel fan. I will say the graphics look good. It looked kind of cool. Looked kind of fun. Looked high quality. Looked very polished. Looked like the voice actors and everything are good. So, yeah, that's all I got there, I guess. Overall, this E3 was not great. There wasn't a ton of hype for it. Not a lot of people had a lot to show. But again, it's this awkward thing where new gen is going to start next year. I mean, like, oh my gosh, Sony's going to have a show, Microsoft's going to have a show, they've got new consoles to show. It's going to be insane. It's going to be positively nuts next year. Everyone's going to be showing their next gen projects, a lot of which won't come out for years, but they still want to get everybody buzzed about next gen. So yeah, this is probably like the calm before the storm. Because it just, I don't know, just kind of weird missteps, particularly from Bethesda and Ubisoft. I will say that if anyone won, it's probably Nintendo, just because, I mean, you know, I like Nintendo. So even just Breath of the Wild and Banjo were really, really big. I am not, like, in the camp of people. I guess I didn't really sum up Nintendo's thing in the Nintendo discussion. Like, in the end, I think it was like this. But I will say right here, I don't think they smashed the competition. Microsoft had a really good show. Nintendo's overall was, like, as a presentation, kind of weak. It was a little bit boring for most of it, and then it was just like 2 big, huge things right at the end. That doesn't make for a particularly good presentation, and I feel like they could have had a little bit, I don't know, I felt like they could have had more. Even the middle tier stuff, not even giant announcements, but if they'd said anything about Super NES games on Nintendo Switch Online, if there'd been anything about Metroid Prime Trilogy, any number of little things. It was mostly it was Banjo and Zelda, which was great. It made it a good direct, but I'm not of the opinion that they absolutely smashed all this competition. They definitely smashed Ubisoft and Bethesda, and I don't know, Square was okay. Microsoft was good though. I'm not going to pretend like Microsoft was way below Nintendo. They had a really good show. They had a lot of stuff to show. I think they might have even matched Nintendo. They didn't have any giant big hitters, but it was a good thing. So I'd say I'm close to saying Microsoft won. And at least as far as the other guys go, they definitely won. Absolutely. So that's that. That was everybody. Everybody talked about streaming. Everybody talked about mobile a little bit too much, but whatever. That's the year. I'll catch you guys later with more non-other guys content. Switch it back to Nintendo now and staying that way till next year. But I'll catch you later.